Hi everyone, Disney's The Lion King here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of this new Spiritualized album, Everything Was Beautiful. This is a brand new LP from Jason Pierce's Spiritualized, their 9th to date, and follows 2018's And Nothing Hurt, which I was a little on the fence with when it came out. The instrumentation on this LP, in my opinion, did not come off as large and as grand as it had at previous high points in the band's discography, nor was I crazy about how much of this thing was mixed. There were some pockets of tracks that felt a little cluttered, others that came off colorless and gray. By no means was this an awful record, but still a far cry away from the strong note the band started the 2010s on with Sweetheart, Sweet Light. And I'm happy to report that I'm actually enjoying this new LP a lot more than I was Spiritualized's previous. Not just because the beautiful orchestrations that Pierce and company typically pile onto their tracks are sounding better, but I'm also really enjoying the cohesion of this project too. The 7 tracks on this thing run at a very tight 44 minutes, and they all complement each other so well. Even the Mainline song, which I wasn't in love with as a single, sounds so much better in the context of the album, serving almost as a joyous pick-me-up right after softer and more teary-eyed moments such as Crazy and Let It Bleed. The entire album comes to an incredible finish with the closer, which we will get into later, but let's for now start at the beginning, with the opener, Always Together With You, which has a simple beauty to its core on the songwriting end, which for Spiritualized is not surprising, because the most bare elements of rock and roll music are often what's informing Spiritualized grand orchestrated space rock opuses, with lots of twinkling notes and reverberating chords underscoring Pierce's very gentle singing, the lyrics describing him being willing to do whatever a lover of his wants him to do, walk galaxies, be a shooting star. The track has the calming euphoria of a really good Velvet Underground song, but also hits those grand instrumental highs of, yes, a Spiritualized track, but the growing instrumentation also hits peaks reminiscent of artists like the Flaming Lips or a classic post-rock record, as well as producers like Phil Spector, especially around the midpoint with the ghostly group vocals and weepy strings. Then I'd say this track progresses to a very special point for Spiritualized, where we really get like the sense of liftoff, as all the droning keys and vocals, guitars and drums pile on top of each other in such a way where it's bleeding in such an aggressively gratifying way, to where it barely even sounds like instrumentation. Best Thing You Never Had is a groovy rockin' cut with some peppy horn sections, steady garage riffs, some real momentum to it like some of the best rock-oriented tracks in the Spiritualized discography like Hey Jane. The whole thing just hits this really hypnotic pace, especially as Pierce is laying on those group vocals on the refrain. It's gonna be a long ride down, and like those sinister guitar passages in the solo section are incredible. The horn freakouts at the end are amazing too. The whole track is really just about keeping up a certain level of intensity and then finding ways to hit the listener with something that makes that hit even harder, feel like it grows even higher. Let It Bleed, conversely, is a softer and more intimate change of pace. With these absolutely sweet, gentle, and slow guitar and synth passages, there is something really woozy about the performance on this one, intoxicating. And I love the genuine sweetness and meta-commentary being delivered on this song, because the track is very much about being in love and wanting to create something that cuts deep and reflects those feelings, but kind of struggling through that process, where Pierce on the chorus is singing that he wanted it to say something special and true, with the instrumentation just booming in the background. Maybe a little too hard to where like the sound of this song is just crushing, but it is a Spiritualized record, and I do appreciate that Pierce and the band on this one want to lay it on heavy sonically and emotionally. Then on Crazy, the band tries to bring their trademark sense of grandiosity to a country ballad, and it goes over really well. I would say even complements the narrative of the previous track, going into just feeling so in love that you come off in your own head as nuts. Then from here we flow into the Mainline song, which instrumentally has a lot going on. Like, to the point where my first impression of this track was that the mix was just a little too messy. But with this track, there is so much just rock instrumentation layered on itself, it kind of consolidates into a blissful buzz. But then on top of that, you have woodwinds and all these quirky little sonic bits that you might catch out of a Brian Wilson production, even with the clanging train bells and alarms kind of wailing away in the background throughout the entire track. There's a real locomotive momentum to the song overall as well. The sound of it, the pace of it, I'm just overtaken by it. And again, given how blissfully it hits and how heavy it hits, it feels so good after the two previous tracks, which really contributes to my feeling that this album runs and just vibes kind of like a movie, especially with all of the chaotic and soaring psych rock riffs to follow on the next track, the A song, which, yeah, sonically and emotionally feels like a response to the very intense simmer the band was able to maintain on Mainline. But man, I just love how high and aggressively the instrumentation piles on this track too, especially with the saxophones and the noisy guitar freakouts. It's immense, it's powerful, and a little dark as well, as Pierce's lyrics mostly dive into all of these depraved descriptions and poetry around love and drugs and death. So then we have the closer, which is a really intensely dark and sad note to end on. It's really an emotional shift from the rest of the LP, and this leaves the album's finish feeling more like a question mark than a period, because all these feelings of love and infatuation have been mostly replaced by existential dread, especially as the instrumental feels like it's slowly marching us to this very dark and untimely end. But still, from spiritualized songwriting, instrumentation, this thing is great, 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 really impressive, beautiful, moving, immense, powerful. I will say the production is not nearly as like panoramic or as vivid as it has been on High Points in the past, but it's still a vast improvement over the last LP, and certainly enough to make this one of my favorite records they've put out. I'm feeling a decent 2 strong 8 on this one. Transition, have you given this record a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best. You're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head is another video you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, Spiritualized, forever.